morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever and whenever you're watching this. Welcome to Grace Healing. My name is Andreas, and I have with me Larry again today. Hi, Larry.
Wonderful. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever. And looking
We're,
forward to jumping in today and see where we go.
yes, and we're concluding our series of the 10 great words, and we have arrived at the 10th great word, which is a very interesting one to me. As I was digging in and reading about it and learning a little bit about how it is presented in scriptures, you know, the 10th commandment.
Yes.
The key idea is thou shalt not covet. And there's different denominations, Christian denominations, that actually break it into two sections. You know, thou shalt not covet your neighbor's wife.
Yes.
And you shall not crave your neighbor's house or anything that is your neighbor's. And when I looked up what covet means in a biblical sense, it's desire or envy. So it appears to me that this is the one and the only commandment that's really dealing with a non-action, right? It's what's going on in our head.
Yes.
We're thinking, our emotions. Do I read that right?
From what I've seen in the commandments, I would say what you picked up on is pretty accurate. But if you look at the 10 great words, every one of them is about where is our spirit, what is the nature of our flesh, meaning our souls, and what's going on within our minds. So it just seems that in the commandment format, they seem to miss this, but it's good to see that in this 10th one, that they do make the connection into what a person is thinking, how they're governing the nature of their thoughts and what they desire to possess or desire that may not be their own. So it's been, as I've shared earlier on in our discussions, to watch how people receive them differently has been fascinating, to see how people come to life as they're empowered to move forward through the 10 great words, and they become shut down, closed, and bound by the commandments. So it's been a fascinating experience to watch.
I think it is maybe because the language in the 10 commandments is so strong, you know, and judging. But, you know, I can't blame people when they read it that they may be taking it too literal or too restrictive and don't think outside of the box. Because Yahshua, Jesus himself, he said, you know, with that commandment, he said, you shall not commit adultery, which is not exactly the coveting, but you shall not commit adultery. But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. So I'm taking this as coveting.
And that's where people don't understand the term of adulterer. Adulterer is to bring something of a lesser form to something of a greater form.
Right.
And he wasn't just speaking about the nature of a woman. He was speaking about the nature to adulter, to bring something of a lesser form into a greater expanse. So if there is a blessed union between a woman and man, and an individual starts to look into that woman and desire her, he has adultered that relationship. Or if a woman looks upon that woman, she has adultered and diminished that union that woman has with her man. And then again, if a person is bringing anything of a lesser form, we talked about it in the process of a meal. If somebody did an amazing gourmet meal, spent hours throughout the day preparing you this amazing meal, and you showed up with your McDonald's French fries and shook them on the plate to eat them on the meal, you've just adulterated the full offering. You've diminished it. So it is a wider expanse. And Yeshua did take the example of the woman and the person in marriage, but there is more to it than a singular relational encounter relating to marriage. It is the totality of all our engagements to adulter in any way.
So is coveting a form of adultery? Or, you know,
yes, because you would be diminishing it. Like, for instance, if you would, like what you just mentioned about to not covet thy neighbor's house, like we just discussed the one about the woman, but if you were to covet thy neighbor's house, if you find, like, you could actually pull up the slide right now. As you know yourself in me, you will know yourself one in all things, and that you will covet nothing. And what that means is if you truly know yourself to be as one with God, you will know all things within you. And therefore, you will not hold any form of lack or any sense of not knowing the oneness that you hold with something. So if you do see a wealthy neighbor, an individual that has great wealth, that has a beautiful home and all the wonderful trappings of their lives and the gifts and abundance that they hold and the ability to just play their lives away and have a blast running around on the lake while you're out there working and doing a tremendous amount of effort just to eke by every day. In this 10th great word, you would be able to look at that with thanksgiving to know that that family, that individual, those people are truly blessed. And you would pray increase upon them. You would pray increase through wisdom, increase through charity, increase through clarity. You wouldn't desire to take from them or to covet and have their home in place of your own if you are truly connected under the presence of God. And that's why it says, as your neighbor displays possessions, you will know that you hold the power to speak blessing for increase upon your neighbor. Being one in me, you will know the power you hold to increase the evidence of all things blessed within creation. In me, you will covet nothing, as you will know all things accessible and blessed for the revelation of my glory and my being. When you know that you are connected in all things, you will know their place in creation. And you will find that you can do no thing and nothing to remove them from their place within my desire, my design. You will seek me first in all things through trust. And if we go back to when you know that you are connected in all things, you will know their place in creation. So as you look to your neighbor, you would see your neighbor as blessed and know that it is rightful by God's grace. They're not a self-made man. There is not one person that has formed themselves up out of the dirt and made themselves to be. The reality is every manner of blessing we experience comes by the grace of God. So if you are truly connected unto the presence of God, you will know that what you see evidenced through your neighbor or evidence through your own life is a gift of grace, and you would recognize it as an instrument to reveal God's glory, because God has manifested blessing upon you, or blessing upon your neighbor, or blessing upon another nation, or whatever. And then it's our role to offer thanksgiving that that has presented, and then pray increase upon them. So if we see a nation that is deeply abundant in resources, we would pray increase of resource, yet we would also pray increase of discernment, clarity, and wisdom to utilize those resources, freed from any form of greed, freed from any form of self-aggrandization. It would move people to a recognition that they would elevate one another to become more of revealing God's divine glory and divine presence. And then we would know that all things have a season. All things are in right timing. So if I'm missing certain physical attributes or things in my life that I would like to have, I know that this season is in place for a reason, and it will be an instrument to reveal God's glory. As God elevates me from the place of need to a place of blessing and abundance, I get to point at, look what God did, not look what I accomplished.
Why is it then that us humans are so egocentric, so power hungry? We want to possess something. If we don't have it, we're jealous, we envy. Why? Where does this come from? It has been like this for thousands of years.
Well, that's actually where we could go to what you were talking about when we were saying that we're going to have to do some sort of a tie-in now. People, I mean, to actually kind of bring a cohesiveness to what we're talking about here and bring all 10 of them together. People have lost sight of the divine overview. They've become so human-centered that they don't understand that this has nothing whatsoever to do with humanity. We merely received the gift to live and dwell as humans, to consume food, to take things into our bodies, to experience the gift of human life. While God reaches through us to do as Yeshua said, to set the captives free, to set free the spiritual captives known as greed, enmity, envy, fear, aggression, hostility, anger, all these different things of a spiritual nature, because people have lost sight of the divine overview. To remember that God does have a design here. They think it's all broken, or I want to possess everything I can while I'm here on the planet, not knowing that this is a temporal experience. We existed before our human expression of life, and we return to a spiritual form after our human experience. And if you look to Ecclesiastes 3, starting at like 3:1, everything has its own time, and there is a specific time for every activity under heaven. Yeshua said to us, receive all things in blessing. So even if we are feeling that we're missing something at this present moment within our lives, we have to trust that even that sense of lack is something we can return into God's embrace. We can surrender and say, God, I am lacking nothing. I have the nature and awareness of your presence within. I breathe. I take upon the living breath of God's Spirit within me. I am complete. I am whole. And if it is within God's will and design, that divine overview, that you will receive this thing you feel you miss in your life, or this relational experience that you feel you're missing in your life, God will position such things in such a way that all manner of the heavens will move to bring forth that which is in the design, that divine overview, looking down through humanity and seeing all things of a spiritual nature that govern it. So when you're describing people that would be functioning through greed or envy or enmity or any form of spiritual influence or sinful desire, God knows that that is to transpire. There is a season for that to unfold. There is an experience that must be manifested through there, and it presents the opportunity for us to relinquish that captive, whether it is the spirit of greed, the spirit of self-desire, whatever we happen to be embracing within ourselves, the spiritual lack, the desire to control, manipulate, any form of aggression, anger, hostility, those things, those spiritual captives that we hold. The divine overview knows that we were to encounter that, and we have a season of time that we would encounter that. But if you, Andreas, and Larry see somebody that lives in greed, lives in the desire to control, manipulate, and gain power over people, we wouldn't pray against them. We would pray for increase through compassion. We would pray for increase through Holy Communion in God's presence. We would pray for increase through wisdom and discernment. And as the compassion increases within them, they would realize that, oh my God, look at all this stuff that I have. And they would begin to, with compassion, see people in a state of suffrage that need to receive some of the excess that they have. And through that process of praying for them to be increased through the compassion, increased through clarity, increased, they will also recognize that they don't have to just give from the surplus. They can give from the depths of their heart. They can give from the depths of places that actually require them to invest on a spiritual plane in order to give something of greater value than a physical bauble or a home or a physical thing of some sort. It would be something to give of the heart, to surrender that God's presence would bring freedom to the spiritual experience that that person might be experiencing upon the earth. So if this person with great wealth finds somebody in great loss in a homeless situation, they wouldn't just snicker and laugh at them and put them down. they would actually look at them in compassion and find within their resources a way to present that individual being homeless with opportunity. They would present them with wisdom and clarity and directive. They wouldn't make them become reliant upon their provision. They would help and direct them, and they would begin to pray from the heart that this person who is homeless or under spiritual detachment or isolation, that they would be freed from isolation and brought to a place of unity to recognize God within themselves and discover God within others. And then they would be moved from a homeless setting into a place where they are governed to be moved with people that would elevate and change their situation. Once the wealthy individual is freed from self-focus, personal gain, and all these things that we witness from a spiritual level through greed, if we're praying with true hearts of desire to recognize God in them, we would begin to see a change in how they respond to people.
I see a common thread, through the 10 great words. And it is really what it is about is us returning from our head into our heart, and think with our heart. And I try to put everything in one sentence, how I perceive what the great 10 words are for. So let me give it a shot. I'll read it to you.
For it. You're better at that than I am.
Well, yeah, I can't say it as well as you did, but this is what it means to me, the 10 great words. The 10 great words are reminders that we are one in God, and that we are to release all spiritual influences that try to disturb that oneness.
Yes.
You agree?
And actually, you just defined the reason for humanity. When people say, what's the meaning of life? You just said it in that one sentence.
Perfect.
The whole of creation is wrapped up in that one sentence, that we choose to simply become that which is God, and we relinquish anything that is not of God. Because all things in their season, God reaches through us to embrace those things that are not of God, to be restored into the nature of blessing which they were originally intended.
It requires getting rid of personal agendas,
Yes.
going within, be silent, meditate, whatever you want to call it. Really, that's what it is. Not thinking in terms of others that we will be judged. I get a new sense of what responsibility means. It's not a responsibility towards something outside of myself, but inside myself. It's fascinating. It was a really, really interesting conversation we had with these 10 great words, Larry.
Yes, and I do want to add one other thought there that people need to consider on their weekly walk. Like you've been mentioning, what would 3 things that people would do? And the reality is, like you described about embracing God and becoming that which is God and releasing all that is not of God. The reality is, if we witness a behavior in somebody, or we witness a certain action within somebody, or a emotional response, if it triggers in us something, like if we see somebody being aggressive or hostile towards another living being, we get angry and injustice within us. We must relinquish that which is not of God, which is anger, self-righteousness, and all these things. We must release these things from within us first, or we are totally ineffectual in the process of revealing God, because we will only reveal our disdain or hatred for the situation. You see it right now within all this stuff that's going on with COVID-19 and all the political stuff. What I'm concerned with, that I witness in my friends as they respond, is I see them coming with a desire to attack and point out what isn't, instead of directing people toward what is blessed. It is all telling everybody what's people's wrong, and that one's wrong, this one's, you're wrong, and you're wrong, and it's pointing out all the wrongs, instead of identifying what is the righteous nature of God. And I will never be able to do that if I look upon these political posts and immediately embrace hatred. If I do not release the hatred within myself, I am totally ineffectual in conveying a message of increase. I am totally ineffectual in conveying a message of compassion. And I am no longer God's presence. I will only perpetuate the desire to fight, to hang on to what is wrongful, instead of elevate people to move towards what is rightful. So it is important that we simply witness the situations that are unfolding and saying, okay, what first does it stir in me? If it is an attribute that does not reflect the nature of God, I relinquish that first unto God. When I find myself touching upon the presence of God through compassion and clarity, now I have the right to look upon the situation and see what is God revealing within my brother or sister that is not pure and of the light. And now, without judgment, I pray for it to be freed, and I pray increase of the divine attribute that offsets that in my brother or sister. I pray for increased compassion or increased clarity or increased understanding. And then I would become part of the solution. And it's like if I sent my car to a mechanic and he spent 10 hours opening up the hood and telling me everything that's wrong, and then gave me back my car, why did I just pay him $750 for 10 hours worth of work to tell me everything that was wrong? That's not what I paid him for. I paid for him to look upon the engine and discover what was off within it, then alter and change what was wrong in the engine, and then correct everything that was supposed to be righted. Once it's righted, now you can go forth in blessing and do and accomplish the task you need to in life. And that's what people need to gain from the 10 great words, is this process is truly about, like you said, looking within to see what is it within me that stirs first, not what are they doing wrong. In what they're doing, it stirred something within me. I need to surrender this before God before I engage upon the nature of others. And I hope that helps.
Wonderful. As we are wrapping up this video, just a personal note, Larry, I really enjoy these conversations. And it's funny, in every conversation, we repeat a lot of things.
Yes.
But I think it's in the human nature that we need to hear it over and over and over. At least for me, there's a lot of changes going on within me, and a betterment and of understanding what God is all about, what life is all about. And I appreciate that. And you viewers, I hope you enjoyed it as well. We're going to continue with our conversations as we move forward. I encourage everyone to go to gracehealing.org, our website, as well as gracehealing.video, where you find a lot of resources, text and videos that you can rely upon and study and learn. So thank you, Larry. Thank you, everyone.
It's been a joy to be with you, and I look forward to the next ones that come. And then also, I guess, the interviews that you'll be doing with individuals that have had experiences through Grace Healing too. That'll be nice to see as other people are walking out their journeys, how they're being blessed in it.
That is the plan, and we look forward to it. All right. Thank you, Larry. Thanks, everyone. We'll talk later.
Blessings to you all.
Bye.
Yeah.